The following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Small Council Matters podcast. I am Wendy Hembrock, and I am joined by our maesters. Let's go around the table and introduce yourselves, please.
Hey, everybody. This is Shannon out in the Pacific Northwest, and cats can solve and create a lot of problems.
This is Jesse Jackson from Dallas, Texas at Jesse Jackson DFW on most social media. I am the maester of sunshine, happiness, rainbow, and all things Springsteen. And am I a good person?
Did you win?
Of course you're a good person. This is Christine from Michigan, your mistress of correction and congestion. Damn wildfires.
And I am Wendy, the maester of links, which we have a very few on our chain this week. We are discussing episode 305 of House of the Dragon, the midpoint of the season, Unbent and Unbowed, which I think we can say of a lot of the characters in this episode. We'll get into all those discussions in a little bit, but first a reminder that we'd love to hear from you, and we'll be talking about some feedback we have gotten. You can come to Discord and drop your comments in the Game of Thrones channel. You can contact us on social media. We are at SCM_pod. You can follow the link in the show notes to leave a voice message, or you can use the old-fashioned way and call us at 706-927-8478. So first up, just want to shout out a couple of links that we have. As usual, HBO does a great job with the inside the episode, as well as the making of and the more lengthier House That Dragons Built, which actually focused a lot on some of the sets and some of the fire effects that we saw in this episode. Definitely fire effects is something that this show really wants to consider its superpower. We also have news about the game that's related to this called War for Westeros, which apparently has been a little bit delayed. So any thoughts on any of those things?
I would say they were all solid, if not spectacular, this week. The House the Dragons Built spent a lot of time in the marshy area and how they did that. A lot of that was on location, and it was interesting trying to watch the actors navigate that, stepping in muck up to their knees, and Freddie Fox seemed to have a particular tough go of it, which was kind of funny. And all the plastic they had to wrap the cameras and equipment in because it was actually raining during a lot of it. So there was a lot of verisimilitude during the shooting of those scenes. And naturally, they used some digital effects for extensions to show, the larger camp and everything. But I thought that was quite interesting. There was nothing like, the massive dragons or the ships or any of the stuff we've seen in the others. But I thought they were pretty good all around.
Yeah, I thought one of the things that was cool is, as they're talking about the bogs and everything, like it's raining, and then they had the fake rain they were showing, and it did look like it was miserable. And I can, the closest I can remember is like doing a Cub Scout family camp out, right? And it's raining and everything's wet. And you're just like, I just want to get in the tent and just go to sleep. So I thought that was pretty interesting, to kind of see that. And it's always fun to me hearing the actors speak outside of character, right? Talking about it and sharing the experience. So yeah, always good stuff. And it does kind of make for a fun like double feature every Sunday night because I usually watch the episode, then I watch the little snippet, and then immediately go and watch it. So it's kind of a fun way to end the weekend.
Yo, dog, I heard you like rain. Oh. I mean, the rain wasn't good enough. We had to add our own rain. Watching that scene in the show was like so miserable, and then I'm like, oh man, I bet the actors are really miserable. They were! But I liked the fire effects because they could do it with CGI, but instead they rebuilt the whole camp on, the actual studio lot and set fire to it. And then they used CGI to combine the shots. And that makes it so much better, I think, because, you're getting actual real fire, which is why it looks so good, because it is real. The War for Westeros game, this was literally the first time I've heard of it, only to hear that it's getting delayed. It's a real-time strategy game, that, Playside, never heard of them either, was, initially gonna have coming out this year, but while, development is progressing well, they need more time to nail it. But along with the announcement, they released some clips of the game, some heroes activating abilities, unit combat, and a map in the Westerlands. So that should keep people excited for another year, I guess. Raise your hand if you're interested in playing this game, because it's not really my thing. But cool.
Yeah, I do like that they are offering games and those kinds of things, but they're not my cup of tea. But if they are yours, it's coming at least. The behind the scenes, the other thing that I really liked was Freddie Fox, because I haven't really seen him speak sort of casually or anything, and Gawain is such a kind of a by the book sort of guy, and he's in a daunting position because he's, saddled with this nihilist who's leading them. So, there's not a lot of opportunity for levity, but he seems like a very light and fun actor to work with. And, I liked when he was featured in the parts in the bog. And I also loved when they were sort of giving the safety instructions, and they're like, you need to keep moving or you're going to get sucked into the bog. And looked really cool on screen. And, I definitely don't ever want to be lost in a bog for sure. The other thing that I found really interesting was they talked about Savas, the game that Ormond and Daron were playing, and apparently that's in Game of Thrones. It's in all the books, but we've never really seen it on screen. So I liked hearing about how they brought that to life, and I really liked how they used it in that particular scene. It was very illustrative of what they were doing. So it wasn't just look, see over here, we have a chest. It was actually very much fit in with the context of what they wanted to reveal about the characters too. So good stuff.
Yeah, I had that in my notes and I wanted to shout it out, but I forgot. It's definitely in the books a lot. Tyrion is especially good at it, and we've heard it, and it's like one of those games I don't know if you remember in New Girl, they had True American or made up games on TV shows that people tried to figure out rules for. And George never put together any set of rules. So that bit on House of the Dragons Built, figuring out the clues from the text that we do have and how to make a board of it. And it was gorgeous to look at. I'd love to have one of those on my coffee table, even if you can't play it. But yeah, that was a particular highlight.
Oh, Shannon, I actually stumbled across a web page with the rules of Savas. I don't know how accurate they are, but I can send the link to you if you like.
I want that link. I wonder if there's an online version.
Yeah, send it to all of us.
I wonder if there's an online version, you can play it or something. It looked interesting. But be careful about who you beat, right? You gotta be no. I was lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An old take on let the Wookiee win, you know.
Well, I mean, we do have a time void coming for the other game, the War in Westeros. So if somebody is an enterprising open source developer, they can build us an online Savas game. So we also got some listener feedback, both in our Discord and in our email. I'm just going to let Christine lead the conversation a little bit about our Discord comments and questions first.
All right. We got two from Denise and Chris K. Denise said she watched the episode. The guerrilla tactics Ormond is orchestrating in Flea Bottom is some good old-fashioned Roman tactics. She likes how Ormond mentioned the yellow toad of Dorne. She is a masterful leader and tactician in the book. You could watch 3 seasons of just her alone taking on Aegon the Conqueror. New spin-off idea. Not much happened in this episode, except she was actually cheering when Aegon took revenge on that guy who made him kiss his boot. Yeah, I think we all were. Except for maybe Larys. Chris said, this was a great episode. Did a lot of, great job, ratcheting up the tension. He thinks it has the perfect balance of action scenes and people talking in rooms. And while he enjoyed pretty much the entire episode, his favorite scenes were the ones with Aegon and Larys. I'm seeing a pattern here. He cheered when Larys told Aegon off, but also liked that he's sticking by Aegon, for now at least. His least favorite scenes were Kristen Cole. Same, dude, same. Never been a favorite of mine, so I find him tedious and boring. Yeah, we're on the same page here, Chris. Vibin'.
Shannon, you want to talk about any additional thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for the feedback, guys. We really appreciate it. I like the guerrilla tactics. Those things that they were leaving Roddy and the Winter Wolves were leaving to slow down Cole's men were called caltrops, which I learned of in George's books. I didn't know what that is, and I always like when I get a word I don't know, and I go look it up. Those are nasty pieces of work.
Although they called them crow's feet in this show. But you're right. Caltrops is the real world equivalent.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even a group called the Caltrops in the books named after that. So I agree with much of the feedback. I don't mind the scenes with Cole. I think he's a hissable villain that's taken an interesting turn. I like the descent into nihilism, and Fabian Frankel plays it well. The Larys and Aegon scenes were awesome. I'm sure we'll talk more about those later. So thanks for the feedback.
Yes, thank you so much for the feedback. I really want to echo some of your thoughts about favorite scenes, but I don't want to spoil what I'm going to pick. But yeah, really nicely done. And I will admit, Cole is slightly, this depressed version of Cole is starting to grow on me.
So first, thank you for the feedback, Chris and Denise. Jesse, I agree. I actually found Cole the most appealing in this episode, not because of his whole, I'm here to die, but because of his explaining that he thinks he's finally living his life on his own terms. He's not going to be a servant to anybody. He's just going to die his own way. He did it my way. The other thing that I wanted to shout out that Chris talked about was Larrigan, the bromance that we've got between Larys and Aegon, and will it turn into a love triangle now that Thailand has entered the chat? And also I wanted to shout out, Denise talked about the Yellow Toad of Dorne story, and that so much tied into this episode overall. The title is referencing it as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I totally appreciated that in this episode as well. So thank you guys for sharing in our Discord. We really appreciate it. We also got emails from Ken in the distant land of Chi-Town across the plains. And he sent in lengthy emails about the first 4 episodes. So I want to give folks an opportunity to shout out any particular highlights from those. We very much appreciate your ravens, Ken.
Yeah, Ken, I'm not sure if you were just catching up on your emails or were catching up on the show, and then sending them as you went, but they were, very entertaining, very funny as always. We love to get your feedback because it's very, humorous. I liked a lot of your, insights and the, a theme kind of running through them was, Rhaenyra, what are you doing, girl? Which we've echoed a lot here on the podcast. And it's sad to watch if you're a fan of the character and kind of rooting for her because she just keeps making mistakes, unforced errors. And it's kind of sad to watch, but it's also great drama. So, read those just before we got on air. So thanks for your feedback, Ken. And it's always great to hear from you. Keep them coming.
Yes, Ken, thank you so much for catching up. It was a lot of fun. I was reading these and just smiling. First off, I love that you call her Rainy. It just is so like I wish I should have done that because I'm always mispronouncing the name. So I should just come up with short, quick nicknames for everyone. I also think that you are actually smart. The idea of Rainey saying, Allison, you're my hand. The world would go crazy. The idea of 2 women running the kingdom, but it's not a bad plan. I think we'd have another rebellion.
Thank you for your many, many lengthy emails, Ken. Unfortunately, we can't comment on all of it at once, but you're catching up, so we'll be able to comment more as they come. I will point out one thing he said about the first episode that we didn't actually think of when we were talking about it. Why was Rhaenyra sleeping in a bedroom with a lock on the outside of the door? That is an excellent question. Forget secret passages. Let's start with don't let yourself be locked into your own room. There's some craziness going on with bedrooms in this show, and he points out something very good. Although I do think that had there not been a lock on the outside of the door, the knight still would have found a way to lock her in. Probably just would have been a little more elaborate. But thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, thank you, Ken. He shouted out Orwell's attempt to be impartial and kind of fulfill the maester's oath of serving, which we talked about a little bit. I also loved that he pointed out the hypocrisy of Aegon about, wanting to be king. He's reminding us that Aegon literally ran away because he did not want to be the king. And I love the idea actually of Alicent as Rhaenyra's hand. I mean, she is effectively functioning as that, in a lot of ways. She's probably given her some of the best advice as well, not that necessarily Rhaenyra's interpreting it correctly. And throughout all of the emails, Ken has pointed out how, Rhaenyra's growing more paranoid and really making some, short-sighted, rookie mistakes in her rule at this point. So thank you again, Ken, for your emails, and we appreciate it. And we encourage everyone to chime in however you can to the conversation. We really, really appreciate it. So now we are going to move on to discussing the episode. And first, we're going to go around with our quick reviews and thoughts. Shannon.
I thought this was a very, very solid episode. In baseball parlance, it would be a solid double. There wasn't a weak scene or a weak link or a weak performance. But I don't know if it hit some of the scene by scene highs that the previous episodes did. It kept things moving. We checked in on like most of the major players going around. And there were some times, like probably mid to late Game of Thrones, when you'd go to the Sand Snakes or, something, and you're like, ugh, 10 minutes here. But I really enjoyed all the check-ins with all the different constituencies around Westeros in this one. And things are definitely moving, and with the promise of more action and more betrayal and more deceit and game playing to come. So I thought it was a very solid, very good episode. I give it a 9.
Yeah, I feel a little bit of the same way, but I don't know if it's a good thing. This felt like a Game of Thrones episode, as in the producer is telling the cameraman, okay, cut to this, cut to this, cut to this. Like we're going from one scene to another scene to another scene, like we've got to catch up everyone. So it did not feel as a coherent story. This truly did feel like, oh, this is one episode of many, and we're moving the plot along. There are certainly some highlights to talk about, and I'm looking forward to, picking one and talking to everyone about it. But it's still good. So I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 cat buffets that is the Red Keep, because they're just going, all these rats are for me? Yay! So the cats are like, can you believe this? This is great!
Yeah, this episode is keeping the fire burning, no pun intended, even though it's a low simmer. We checked in with all the siblings. No jaw-dropping moments, although I was quite pleased to find that I was right about Sir Tyland. There were a lot of interesting points that came up in this episode. This year, the Red Keep is putting on a production of Cats. Alice is brewing up a hot summer ween. Allison picks up a sponsorship deal with Plan B. Sir Kristen is doing his best Marlon Brando impression. And Damon gives a stirring halftime speech, but the team still bites it in the end. I give this episode 8 out of 10 Games of Cerveza.
I like that rating. To me, this was a very classic Game of Thrones episode in terms of its construction. It did have to check in with a lot of people, but it did a great job of laying down a lot of information about the bigger war that's happening, the tactics that various people are using. I can feel the tension ratcheting up kind of everywhere. There was a lot of, foreboding in this episode. We talked about the Red Keep is full of cats, and, cats pounce, right? They're very opportunistic, predators. And we see that from our various factions as well. I love, for instance, how we had the little kid who's tracking Damon and Sir Luther, who then goes to whisper to the guy who I believe was a Kingsguard. He was at the Scorpion when Alicent said, "Hey, don't shoot." And he, took off his helmet very specifically so we could see his face. And I'm like, there's the guy. That's why they did that. And he's the one riding the Raven to Ormond. And then we switched there. To me, that was very much the brand of Game of Thrones, the style of storytelling, and I appreciate it a lot. So it wasn't a big, aha moment or a huge battle. It was definitely quieter, but we're laying the ground for those things. And I would give this 8 out of 10 crow's feet. So now we are going to head into more detailed discussion and highlights for the episode. We're going to start out with Shannon.
Well, because there were so many nice scenes as we hopped around and lots of two people saying smart things in a room, it was tough to narrow it down. But I'm going to go with Rhaenyra and Daemon in the Sept. First of all, it was just beautiful to look at. That scene lit with natural candlelight and the focus on them and only an occasional pull back to show others entering and exiting. And, Emma Darcy was fantastic in that because what we're seeing is a gradual descent. She's unraveling a little bit, much like the opening credits with everything that's going on. And, you see how some of Allison has her picking her fingers and Rhaenyra has her worrying, fixating on various threats. And, she was more worried about the bastards than paying the people that are supposed to keep law and order or the citizens getting food or, and as we talked about, during our listener feedback, she's making a lot of unforced errors too. And you can see it there. And how wild is the scene where Daemon seems to be the voice of reason, when they're talking about it. But Emma Darcy's performance, cause they're also looking to see if anybody's coming in and eavesdropping on them. But her furtive looking left and right and up and down as she's praying to the gods, looking at the candles, looking at Daemon, looking at other people come in. Her face also betrays kind of an unraveling. So I think it worked on a lot of levels. And then I always love when they talk in High Valyrian, and it was great. She thinks people are scheming against her, but the gods sent me a sign. And why are so many things going wrong if the gods are for me? And Daemon comes back with true gods have no need of septons, and neither do we. Yeah, they make lots of great points, and he's trying to get her to focus on the important things, but she's so frustrated with so many things going wrong. Rightly so, because a lot of things are going wrong. And at the end, he just kind of gets up and walks out. It wasn't wasn't an a-hole move to pull, but it's like, I just got to get out of here. I thought it was beautifully acted and kind of laying a lot of legwork for how her administration is going so far.
Great choice. I love when they talk High Valyrian. There's an intimacy there that this is their quote unquote love language. And I realize that a lot of people can speak this, but it seems like any time they need to share something without the emotions or too strong emotions, they do that. Like when he pledges his fidelity to her, right? And says, I can't leave you. I've tried before that, right? In the bedroom when he's talking to her after her son's death. And they go back and forth between, the High Valyrian or their normal language. So I thought it was a great scene. Daemon is whatever you call in this world an atheist. He has no interest in gods. For him, gods, they are gods themselves because they have dragons. So her thinking about going to the Septon and going to the church, there is a disdain. Like, why would you even do this, right? We're above this. We are beyond this. And we are our own gods. So I just thought it was a really beautiful, and it also shows Rhaenyra is like many of us when things are unraveling, as you guys talked about, much like the credits, you focus on what you control. I remember in 1989, 88, Linda was pregnant, and I knew my role was going to change. And I had a DOS version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the old Infocom game, and I would play it for hours at a time because I could control that keyboard and what's going on, even though my real world was I knew it was going to change. So I think she is absolutely focusing on the wrong things. And she's not willing to listen to anyone to tell her. Like one of the things that Ken said, right? Like the answer is, thank you for allowing me that. I'll get back to you. Thank you. That's a good point. I'll get back to you, right? But no, she's trying to control things she can't control, and she's focused on the wrong thing. So a beautiful scene. I always love these two together. They, if I could just a little bit, where Allison tells Melissa they're two sides of the same coin. Like, you think you have a relationship, but when push comes to shove, those two have always had this yin-yang relationship, and nothing's going to break that apart. So a great choice of showing that intimacy. And you are also correct. When Damon is the practical one, not a good sign.
So I just want to marvel at this scene. This has got to be the most High Valyrian spoken, like, all in one go in the entire show universe. And they just sounded like they speak it fluently. Like, it really is their first language. I'm not even hearing the language, I'm just hearing their emotions as they say it, because they're so good at it. And I wonder how long they had to practice this. And are they just learning the words in the correct order, or are they properly learning the language? I don't believe it's actually a full language yet, although it is one that you can learn on Duolingo. And yet there are so many real languages I can't get a hold of. But I thought there was an irony to this scene, because they're in the Sept, supposedly putting on a show for the faith. But she is there wondering about her faith, wondering what the gods are doing. Not the Seven, but her gods. Or maybe the Seven. Who knows? They don't really get into what god she's talking about. But she keeps asking, like, they sent her a dragon in her hour of need. Why is everything so hard? Why are they allowing this stuff to happen? It is a conversation of faith, and it's taking place in a sept, even though that's not the faith they're talking about. We're talking about her faith and Damon's lack of faith, or his belief that they're the gods, not some otherworldly being. It's a very interesting conversation, very interesting place to have the conversation. And I think it really gives us insight into why Rhaenyra is just flailing at the situation. She's really focused on all the wrong things. We see earlier at the small council, everybody's presenting all these problems that are right there in front of her in King's Landing, and she's focused on, where are Aemond and Vhagar? Go back out there and find Aemond and Vhagar. This is not something you can control. You can control what's happening in front of you. You can control what's going on in your city, and you should, because it's going to affect you immediately. But, yeah, I'm gonna agree with everybody. It's bad when Damon's the voice of reason. And, we can mark this as the beginning of the end times.
This was going to be my number one choice as well. Actually, this and also the conversation they had outside the small council, because they kind of go together. I loved the shot that was overhead of the table, and you could see the whole Faith of the Seven symbol carved into the table with all the candles. I don't think we've ever seen that room in that way before. I agree that putting those two characters in the sept was a very interesting way to go. I loved how the conversation starts and continues, because Daemon is all hot about the people, right? It's his people who are dead. He's really upset about the city watch who are being killed, and he understands the threat that is to them. And he calls her out about it. He's like, you put the people against the Gold Cloaks by sending them on this, extreme hunt because you got mad about some graffiti that you should have just ignored, Rhaenyra. And so he's making some very valid points, but she is as well. You know, she's clearly paranoid, and she understands the sort of pressure cooker, you know, the idea that there's who could be coming into the sept, you know, seeing them. I mean, she went there on purpose to be seen there, but maybe she didn't want to be heard there. But she talks about my enemy is here. I feel it rising up. And I loved how Daemon goes down this whole road about, we don't care about this stuff. We're the gods. And she's talking about, well, if the gods are on our side, why hasn't things gone better? And he's like, did you really think that this was going to be the happily ever after story? I mean, he calls out her naivete about ruling. He's like, you're a woman. Somebody is always going to be coming for you. You know, and he's very practical about all of this. And he understands that fundamentally there needs to be a strength that underpins her rule. And right now she's not leading with her strength. But I loved how she totally gets Daemon to go do what she wants, because she pricks his pride when she talks about, well, if this is just humans, these are men, they're not gods, why is Daemon, the master strategist, not found the guy? And he literally like smiles, like, touche, and that's when he's leaving at that point. But he reminds her at the end, you know, you are more than this. It keeps coming back to the idea to buttress her up that we're gods, but unfortunately, that is putting her brain in the wrong place, because she's starting to think about her rule as if there's gods, you know, at play here versus just strategy and thinking and good counsel. And clearly she has terrible counsel after that small council meeting we saw. So that was a great one. I definitely appreciate that highlight. Okay, so Jesse, what do you got?
I'm gonna do a mulligan. I guess I'm gonna change my mind. I was gonna talk about our traveling fun pair, and that, you know, the road to, I'm finally gonna tell you what I think of you, but instead I'm gonna go with the small council, because I think we've all been at a new job where someone is telling us the scoop. Yeah, that guy, you don't want to be in the room with him. No, that person, he always sucks up to the boss. Yeah, this person, if you really need something done, this is it. So here's this brand new member of the small council trying to tell another, because he's just thrilled he's no longer the junior member, right? He's moved up in seniority by this other person, and he's telling her, okay, yeah, like this is, she's the, you know, she's called the White Worm. She could do that. The whore, well, yes, but you know, and then just they're going through all this stuff. Was hilarious. Because it seems so real. Because I just can think of all the times where I'm walking new people around in an office or sharing. So I just thought that was hilarious. And I was worried we wouldn't talk about it. So I'm going to bring it up. Just, I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
I actually had to rewind the scene and watch it again because I was getting caught up in the gossip and not hearing what was happening at the meeting, which is what would happen to me in real life. Like, I have been next to the person who wants to share the skinny, and I'm like, I usually interrupt them and say, I need to pay attention to this. Cause I can't listen to two things at once. So ironically, what I was hearing was the gossip. Even though it was whispered, it seemed to be like overshadowing everything else that was happening in that meeting. And, I found out, I was like, wait a minute. They were talking about murders and Flea Bottom, and she's talking about Vagar. What's going on here? That's actually like the first hint I was getting that Rhaenyra just wasn't up for this whole ruling thing, that she was really focused on the wrong thing. Like, I understand the threat that Aemon and Vagar are, especially Vagar, but at the moment, they are missing, which means they aren't doing anything. They aren't hurting really that many people. Vagar is, but, that's what a wild dragon does. They, just burn whatever and eat whatever. And here there are people in her own city, people she cares about, getting brutally murdered, and she's just dismissing it. She's just ignoring it. And I don't know, the council doesn't seem to know what to do about any of this. I'm not even sure what Lady Frey was brought in for. Like, what's her position on the council? She's mistress of what? She's not mistress of ships, because I'm pretty sure Alan has that job, master of ships. We got the master of coin, got the Grand Maester, and what is she doing there? I don't know what her job is. They forgot to tell us. And I wonder if Rhaenyra even told her what her job is, because she's not really focused on anything. So, I want to mention, like, the little side thing that was brought up there. We've got this little, let's call them a couple, Adam and, Baela. Baela, as distracted as Rhaenyra, but hyper-focused on what Rhaenyra wants, because she's trying to get back in her good graces, and she's not sleeping, she's not eating, and it actually is starting to show. Like, I don't know if they did something with her makeup, but she looks wrung out. And Adam, I think, is just as wrung out, because he's trying to keep up with her. But he cares about her condition, and I wonder if when he presents it to Rhaenyra, he says, we just arrived this morning, and Lady Baela hasn't ate, let alone slept. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't that the same for you too? Are you complaining on your own behalf, but like covering it up as hers? And I wonder what's going to happen with those two. I think Baela's too stuck in her own stuff to really see what's going on there. But lots happening in that meeting. I think I ended up watching it 3 times just to grasp everything that was happening. It was so chaotic. And then Alan, he was there. And he was doing exactly what I was pretty sure he was going to do in like his first several meetings. Absolutely nothing. He was sitting quietly and listening. And honestly, that would be me. I think that's the only way to get through one of those meetings. It's just pure chaos. Is it like this every time?
Well, I mean, it's getting worse the more people that they add to the small council. I had the same question about what is Lady Frey doing on the small council, or was it basically placating her because she's really pissed that they said Harrenhal's going to whoever kills Aemond. And she's like, you can say that, but I'm going to kick their butt out. And it's mine, Alan did not surprise me whatsoever that he did not speak and he was just listening, because, I mean, he is kind of probably the best person to be on the council. He just doesn't have any experience doing it. I did really like, though, that you had the side commentary happening while events were unfolding. Daemon is very concerned about the number of city watch that have been killed. Rhaenyra's like, that doesn't matter. That's not for the realm. We're going to let Luther take care of that. And at the same time, we get the narrative about who's who on the council, and you just got all the dynamics that are going on, and it doesn't really feel like anybody knows or understands where Rhaenyra is going from a direction perspective. Like, she's really not demonstrating any leadership within this group. The Adam and Bela, bonding and him trying to support her, I appreciated that, but in some ways he's undermining her at the same time, because he's, quote, sticking up for her. She just needs to do it herself, and she's unwilling. She recognizes that Rhaenyra is still angry about her role in everything that happened in the gullet, but she needs to actually force, and she being Bela, needs to force a conversation with Rhaenyra. This whole, I'm going to win it back by doing some amazing thing. Yeah, your sister tried that and, did not work. And that is not the path to getting back in her good graces. And it's going to come around and bite their father in the butt, too, in the future. And I completely agree about the Vhagar and Aemond thing. That is an existential threat that's laying out there, and it could, Vhagar could potentially kill all the other dragons, but that's on the back burner, not the front burner. And she later in the Sept even is talking about, I feel that the enemies are inside the house now. And instead of making that strategic in terms of how's she going to root out the spies and the people who are, duplicitous, it's just making her, I would say, paranoid and sort of shrink. So yeah, it was a great scene for illustrating how chaotic things are at this point, and that there is no strategy, or they don't have a strategy at this point. They're just sort of putting out one pop-up fire after another, or trying to.
I've got bad news and good news for you, Lady Frey. The bad news is that castle I was going to give you ain't happening. The good news, you get to sit in a lot of tedious, pointless meetings. It's that kind of got brushed off, but I guess when the queen kind of changes the terms of the deal on you, you kind of go along with it to see what other cards are going to be dealt and how to play it. But again, a case of Rhaenyra making an unforced error that probably come back to bite her. Jesse, your comment about being like new to a job, I thought that was hilarious. The actress who plays Lady Frey and Dan Fogler as Lord Manderley did a great job of the comedy asides there. You can just tell that was like each their personalities. And at the same time, you can kind of see the chaos going on around them. And then she's like, is it always like this? And yes, it kind of is. What it did was it showed us a good reason for all the dysfunction, even though she found her previous small council kind of useless, and by all rights they were. This group is not doing much better. Nobody's helping her focus on the thing. Daemon tries, but Daemon has his own biases, but I think his biases are kind of in the right place too. I can empathize with that when you get overwhelmed with a lot of projects and a lot of life stuff going on all at once. You just flit from thing to thing to thing, and when instead you should prioritize, make a list, and try to tackle them one at a time, and offer a good solution to at least one. Cross that off your list and go to the next. But yet they're just highlighting all the bad things that are going on, and they're not resolving anything as a result of that. And when you commented on her saying in the Sept scene about, like, I feel the enemy is inside. Well, that's because the enemy is inside, as we saw with the guy who took his helmet off. And a lot of this is happening at the orchestration of Ormond Hightower. So killing the gold cloaks, painting the graffiti, the dispatches from people inside King's Landing. So yeah, it was a scene that offered sowing of seeds for more chaos to come. It had some good moments of tension between characters straining for their points of view to be heard and focus on the priorities. And it had a lot of levity too. It was very funny. So kudos. Good choice.
Okay, Christine, you're up.
Oh, I can't believe it. My scene has been left alone. Let's go with, Laris and Aegon. The road to the boat to Bravos. I feel we are really close, very close to Aegon becoming a new man. I don't know if I'm going to like this new man, but I'm sure he will be more enjoyable to watch than the rich rapist he used to be. Yay! Basically, Aegon's getting to rock bottom. I'm not sure if he's hit it yet, but Laris is giving him a much-needed shove. Aegon lists all the ways that Aemond was handed things that he didn't have. Then Laris counters with all the advantages he was given and squandered. Aegon actually mentioned how Aemond is fluent in High Valyrian, and all I could think is that he wasn't handed that knowledge, he worked for it. He worked hard at the sword too, training all the time while Aegon went off drinking with his buddies. The irony is, like, the scene right before that, Aemond is saying how he worshipped Aegon in his childhood. But the best part was that Laris pointed out that he's in his current situation because he decided to go to a battle he wasn't invited to. Laris had even tried to stop him from going in his own way. And so this whole situation he's in is his own making and his own fault, and he's just trying to blame everybody else. I had a friend like this who was trying to blame, he was one of those guys who prematurely balds. And this, of course, was the reason why he couldn't get a girlfriend. It wasn't the fact that he had a crappy job, had a crappy attitude, and he was overweight. You know, focus on the one thing you can't control, and that's the reason for everything. And that's exactly what I was hearing from Aegon here. Is like, all of these things were just handed to other people, and I was just dumped on. Like, no, you had all those things handed to you too, and you didn't take advantage of them. But of course, we get Sir Tyland back. I was jumping for joy because I'm like, yay! I said he wouldn't die this season. But I'm not really sure who to blame for the situation they were at the end, because Tyland was there blabbering on about him being the king, and Laris was talking about making Casterly Rock the new seat of the king. But then there was that bag with the crown left unattended. Who was responsible for the bag? Aegon? Laris? I don't know. And I don't know where they're going from here, either Bravo or Lannisport, but they definitely can't stay now, because they just killed the guy who was in charge of everything. That is going to go poorly. And I loved Laris's reaction to that. It was just exasperated, like, ugh, now what do I gotta deal with? Just gotta clean up after this guy left and right. That there was a lot of character development starting to happen there. Like, Aegon is just, as Laris put it, whinging about everything. And he's right. And I couldn't believe that Laris finally lost his tolerance. I mean, he's been very tolerant up to this point, and then he finally is just like, you're a terrible person. You were a terrible king, and you are a terrible person. And he just walks away. Like, wow. He said it. And then there was progress. Aegon went back, because he was gonna run away and go find his brother. Impossible task, but he came back and just hired the damn boat. So, the comedy duo continues, is now a comedy trio. I hope that works out. Can't say I've heard a lot of comedy trios that work out, but there's potential there.
I like this scene as well. It was probably I would say my number 2, maybe my number 3. I loved when he just point blank tells Aegon, Laris says, you were a terrible king. You are a terrible man. And mic drop, I'm out. I love that. I also loved earlier in that scene when Aegon, gets, so frustrated, and he says, "Stop telling me what I can't do." And that was, to me, that was actually the moment where he finally is like, I have agency. That he can have agency, because he's been just focused on his self-pitying and whinging, as Laris described it. So I loved when they came back together back in, Rook's Rest Ruin, and Laris has saved his apple for Aegon. That to me told me that he wanted to mend that rift that had started. And then that guy who I refer to as the lurker, he's, the spy, I guess, for Janos. We see him off to one side, and he's obviously tipping him off to something. And that's when we get Tywin Lannister returning. And again, I thought we said we had agency now of Aegon, because when Janos comes with the crown, he immediately acts, and I do not think this is a redemption arc for Aegon, because after he kills the guy, he has a really sadistic smile on his face when he says, "Call me your grace." And even when he is looking at Laris after he went through his long list of failures, he has a look on his face like, someday I'm gonna pay you back for that wound that you did to me. But I do like the interesting conflict that Tywin is going to now bring to the conversations about what to do. It reminds me of when we had sort of Tyrion, and I'm forgetting his name, Dany's dad, a dad figure who was in love with her. I'm forgetting his name.
Sir Jorah.
Jorah Mormont. That sort of dynamic, because, we have the discussion about, is it better to go to Braavos, which is, basically exile, or should we take shelter with the Lannisters, and the suspicions that emerge with that idea. And we had a person who has been to Braavos and said, hey, it's not that great there. It's not, he isn't going to like what he finds when he gets there. So
the monkeys.
So this was a great choice. I like this choice.
Yeah, this was also on my short list of scenes. We talked about Laris having the patience of Job to put up with all of Aegon's antics and ranting and blown covers and everything else. And I love that he finally just laid into him. But it wasn't an outburst. It was all controlled, and nothing he said was untrue. It's like, you were a terrible king, and even worse, you're a terrible man. And it's like, wow. Then, mic drop if there had been microphones then. And then, drop the Raven, I guess. I don't know. And then, walked out. And what I also loved about this is this scene was, stacked against Aemon talking to Alice. And so you got both brothers' perspectives on each other. And Aemon seemed to be racked with guilt kind of over what he did, or at least there was a strong component of it. And Aegon's was all blaming Aemon for everything and blaming his mom for paying more attention to, blaming everybody but himself. So I think it was good that Laris needed to say that. Whether he takes it to heed, who knows? But he did come back and he said the right things when he was there, like, no, I'm not going to do it, and let's book a ship and whatever. And I love, like you mentioned, Wendy, the small little gesture that was beautifully filmed of that apple was sitting on the table while he's saying it, and he just slides it over. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then Tywin shows up. So Tywin is also very funny. So I hope we see those three together for a little more comedy before it starts getting a little darker. Yeah, that was a fun scene, and I don't think they're making him on a full redemption arc, like maybe a Jamie or the Hound or somebody like that. But I do like that they're coloring around the lines and he's not just the petulant a-hole that we saw from the very beginning. And, you know, another person whose problems, despite all his blaming and finger pointing when on his rant, a person whose problems are mostly of his own making, you know. So, I thought that was a great scene and wonderfully performed by everyone in it.
Huey, Dewey, Louie, the Three Stooges. Yeah, we're just looking at, this was what it was going to be my pick, but I decided to go with the council. This is just wonderful. And I'm so happy that he gets told off. Now, I did worry about Laris afterwards, but maybe Aemon is not that dumb to know that if he could hurt him, that he would survive by himself. I did smile when I saw, like, oh, look, Christine's right. He's not dead yet. So I was very happy about that. Very pleased. Yeah, this is just such an interesting twist. And you're right. Like, when you think he may have been humbled, and, you know, Laris hands him the apple, like, hey, you know, we're still good, bro. Yeah, oh yeah, we're still good, bro. But then when that guy finds the crown and he just over and over and over and over and over with the knife. And they talked about it in the making of, they mentioned Goodfellas when that scene where Joe Pesci, like, over and over and over again, and then you can call me your grace. Not too much of a humble, maybe just a momentary. So curious to see how this is going to go. But I love watching them interact together.
Yeah, those were all great choices. I'm going to leave another good one on the table for folks because I want to talk about the Allison and Helena story that we had. Because for me, that was a real highlight, especially for Helena, in this episode, because she's accessing her visions, you know, in a more lucid way. She's not communicating it to Allison with her having understanding, but the audience is seeing more of her understanding what's going on. When Allison comes to her and says, hey, we need to leave. And she makes a comment about nobody knows where Eamon is. And she's like, he's in Harrenhal. I see him there. And Allison's like, no, he left. You know, that's the propaganda that Alice Rivers put out, was that he fled. You know, and Vagar's off eating things all over the countryside. And when she's showing Jaehaera the caterpillar that's eating the nightshade and don't touch it, it's like, who is that? What is that little parallel that we're leading to? Is it her mother or is it somebody else that's trying to poison her? And literally, you know, Allison wants her to drink moon tea to induce an abortion of this baby because she knows, and Allison recognizes the threat. And then Helena also understands that her mom is probably lying to her when she says, it's better if we leave Jaehaera behind. And, you know, maybe she'll get warded to Rhaenyra. That'd be a good thing. And Helena's smart enough to realize that's not a good thing. I also liked that we see just how desperate Allison is. You know, she's now trading important jewelry because her adopting the whole Faith of the Seven symbolism was really important to her as part of her emergence as the one running things way back when she did have a lot more power. And I really liked the scene when Masseria comes in, and we finally got to see her sort of being that operator that we expect her to be. And Allison is able to engage with her in a really interesting way. She's trying to shield her from paying too much attention to Helena. It's like, oh, that moon tea isn't for, it's for me. And she, tells the truth, just the timing is a little bit off about when those events might have happened. And then later when they get caught by Masseria, she's smart enough to turn this into an opportunity to create a relationship. She's like, hey, I owe you a favor now. That might be really important if everything goes sideways, and you need to be able to cover your own butt, depending on what happens, because, throwing all your weight behind one person is not always the smartest play. And I mentioned earlier how this episode reminded me a lot of sort of classic Game of Thrones. And part of it was because of those reasons, scenes like these between Allison and Masseria, that was very much a Game of Thrones type character moment that we saw. And then the thing I loved was at the end when they're in the bedroom and the cat is at the door because there's stuff behind the walls. And once they go into the tunnel, which I think in the behind the scenes they called this Magor's tunnel, the cat is also the reason that they lose the candles, and they might be lost in there or not sure what's going to happen. Maybe they'll overcome their fear of being in a really gross place. But I just really enjoyed every one of those moments. It for both of those characters, I just saw a lot. It's not Helena just being in the thrall of her visions or being worried and confused and sort of a bystander to what's happening. She also is developing more of her own agency. So I enjoyed those a lot.
Yeah, good choice, Wendy. This was a very good Helena episode. She had a little bit of her sweet daffiness like she always does. But she was also very strong in her convictions about no, this is mine. She doesn't want to, drink the moon tea. It's not good strategy to try to bluff someone who has visions and is a seer, and plus she commented on Allison's tail anyway. I think you always look to the left when you're lying or something like that. And I thought it was funny when she was like, no, Aegon or Aemond is there. She know, but she says it in that way that it just kind of goes right over everybody's heads. But we as viewers, with our omniscient point of view, know that she's exactly dead on right. So, it was good. And then she just seemed so sad when she was at the window and they were in there. She said, I just want to look at the moon. There were lots of good moments in there. And Allison is at the end of her tether too, trying to find a way to get them out of this situation. Cause she knows that once Rhaenyra hears about the baby, that it completely changes the dynamic for both of them. And especially if it winds up being a boy. That's, So, it was good dialogue, well acted by everybody. And as I said at the top in my intro, cats are good for a lot of things, but they can also mess you up. And it's funny that because of the cat pawing at that wall, that's how they found one of the escape hatches. But then they get in there and it's like, oh no. So it's not like anybody has let me use the light on my iPhone here or pull out my cigarette lighter or something. You're in a creepy dark passage that's been sealed up with no light. Yee. So yeah, I love those. And like you said, Wendy, it had an old school feel of people saying, interesting things in opulent rooms and, yeah, classic. Loved it.
First off, I do not support this, but I am a little surprised Allison didn't just put that in some kind of drink to manipulate her daughter. I do not support that kind of behavior whatsoever, but I was surprised that Allison wouldn't have done that. I love Helena. It's mine. It's my choice. My body, my choice, right? And the idea, what if it's a boy? And to her, it's a son to replace the one she's lost, right? And Allison is absolutely showing either how bad of a mother she is or how good of a mother she is, because she seems to be very concerned about her daughter, but she is sending the message, but you don't worry about your kids, okay? Let's just leave them. They're fun. They're going to be great. Man, there's a rainbow bridge, okay? And all is shiny and happy. And you can go and there's just toys and sweets. And so,
Jesse, your title is starting to sound very dark now.
Yes. It just was a beautiful Helena standing up for herself. And I wondered if there was a reason I need to see the moon. I wonder if that had something to do with a prediction or her getting something on, feeling and knowing something. And she felt like she could get a clearer vision if she was not looking in the moon through the window. And her mom like, well, you're going to have to look through the window. I will take just 1/8 of a point because I had predicted she would say something and they would ignore it. That's not quite the biggest prediction yet, but it is kind of, yeah. You're so funny. So I thought it was and I loved the cliffhanger, right? That they've overturned the candle, and in the behind the scenes, they talked about they actually used that as the lighting. So, we're now stuck in this, secret chamber that's walled off, and where are we going to go next? And I'm curious where this is going to go with the White Worm, right? Like, is she playing both sides? Is she feeling a little bit she's hedging her bets? I just think that was an interesting storyline to explore. So great choice. I'm really glad we got a chance to talk about it.
I thought it was interesting that they had, back to back, I think it was, Aemond at Harrenhal and then Helena at, the Red Keep. Aemond is thinking of Helena. And his fevered ramblings, he says, she saw it, she said I would die, that I ruined everything. And I believe Helena said that last season. And then we cut to Allison and Helena, and she tells her mother, he's at Harrenhal. I've seen him. He burns, but without fire. And I'm like, yeah, that's called a fever. He's having fever dreams. Like, it's so much easier to understand her predictions when you see exactly what she's talking about. Now, I do have one question about this whole secret passage situation. Did we seriously put Allison and Helena in Rhaenyra's old room and just forgot there was a secret passage? 2 people.
It's not the same room.
It is.
It's a different passage.
I checked the episode where Rhaenyra leaves, like Daemon leaves her bag to go out. It's the exact same secret passage. It's the same, the arches, are there, the painted design on the door that actually opens, the same one. It's Rhaenyra's old room. And she and Daemon both know about that secret passage. Now, apparently it's been sealed up since then, but seriously, I mean, like, what if somebody was trying to get into her and they've been working at unsealing that passage? How long has it been like that? It could have fallen apart. Did anybody even check it? Did we just forget about this? It's crazy.
Well, in the behind the scenes, I actually thought it was a different passage because part of the behind the scenes was talking about building these sets new. So I didn't think it was a room
I don't think they really explored the passage part. In the first season, I think it was more about her sneaking out, and we didn't see the back room. But also, it seems like they keep tearing things down at the end of the season and then rebuilding stuff later on when they need it again, because I don't think they've been in that room since season 1, and that was many years ago. So they probably, just like they rebuilt the Red Keep this season, they probably rebuilt Rhaenyra's old room, and they conveniently used the same secret passage. I don't know if there's a lot of them in the Keep. This might be just the one. Who knows? But, I wonder, that cat ran off into, it looked like a different section. It wasn't from where they were coming from, and it wasn't the sealed door. The cat looked like it went in another direction, and I'm like, is there another way down there? Are they gonna run into somebody? Are they gonna run into Kurt Russell? Escape from Red Keep? Shannon got that. But.
Yeah, we all got that. The implication from the behind the scenes is there's many tunnels, and there's not just one. Was my
riddled with
interpretation of
this place is crazy. I do wonder about the comment about needing to see the moon, if it had anything to do with the moon tea, and she something about wanting to keep the child. I wonder if we're ever going to find out, or if we're just going to let Helena's ramblings be ramblings.
Sometimes a delusion is just a delusion. The thing that I thought was so interesting and reinforced in the conversations with Alicent was Helena's very firm that she's not going to lose another child. It's hers. And in some ways it's like, oh, that's very powerful. She's staking her sphere of influence and what she's, understands. But Alicent is terrified by that comment because that means death, depending on the gender of this kid. If she takes it to full term. And also, it's also a selfish, not unlike Alicent, view of children. We've talked about Alicent isn't the greatest mother, and she very much thinks strategically about her children. She doesn't seem to have a maternal instinct, whereas I think Helena truly does, which is why she's so committed to the idea that she's not leaving Jaehaera behind, and she's not giving up this kid. So let's talk. Do we have more highlights to talk about? I'm guessing there might be one or two.
Yes. Let's talk about Alice and Aemond. So, Alice was one of my favorites last season, and they're doing like a replay, but a different take on it. So I like that, many of the local mercs are buying tickets to the Harrenhal Ghost Tour, but I'm not sure they're getting their bang for their buck. Alice, in her Morgan Le Fay costume, is serving up chilling ghost tales with cheap effects. Some were scared off by the act, but some thought they were getting a pub crawl and went for the wench. They were clearly the better class of mercenary, because they free climbed that cliff to get in through the Godswood, which, impressive. Very impressive. But enter Westeros' hottest new couple, the Witch and the Warrior. Aemond's been convalescing in what appears to be the driest room in the castle, experiencing his fever dreams, and he's worried that Vhagar has left him for good, and that he's nothing without her. Alice is assuring him that he's mistaken about that. And what is scarier than Alice's ghost stories is her playing the role of mother to Aemond. Like Florence Nightingale here. And it's creeping me out, but it works. I don't know how I feel about it. It was a very cool fight scene at the end there too. Like, Aemond's not quite at his full fighting form, but he takes on these 4 guys basically by himself. And Alice wasn't really much of a help there. So like, she saved his life, but now he's saved her life, and I'm wondering what the dynamic is going to be from here, and what her end goal is exactly, because she's making it sound like she doesn't know where Vhagar is, but I just can't buy that from her. Like, this seems like the type of thing that she knows exactly all the details, and like, she's building him up for something. Like, I know she wants Harrenhal, but at the moment she kind of has it. She's managing to keep it all by her lonesome. And I'm wondering if that's even, like, what she intended by wanting the castle. Like, it seems like it's just her and Aemond. We haven't seen anybody else there except people coming to find him. So, I'm very intrigued by this creepy couple. And I'm waiting to see what happens.
So, to me, there's, this term, it was used in Buffy the Vampire Slayer when Buffy meets the real Dracula, and she keeps getting accused of being under his thrall. And to me, Alice is definitely able to conjure thrall with Daemon. I loved the scene when we first see Alice in the entryway, when the first 3 bounty hunters come in, and she's like, dude, you don't know the story of Harrenhal. And I love how she just tosses a rock over her shoulder as a distraction, and she knows that that's going to stir something up, which is what happens. And then, they're freaked out and they're running away. But she tells this story about the blood mixed with the water of the workers. And, maybe it was just me, but it really sounded like she was there on the ground when that happened. We've talked about her potential long life, and it felt like she's definitely been there, seen that in the past. The thing that did surprise me was that she is leaning into that surrogate mother kind of weirdness, and I don't know. I mean, I was thinking they were going to create more of a romantic relationship between them, because she and Daemon were kind of really flirty when he went through this whole Harrenhal experience. But Aemon's different. He is dealing with these whole mother issues, which we talked about a little bit earlier. The scene I loved, and it really felt like a genuine emotional connection between her and Aemon, was when she was saying sometimes the parent that grieves their child is the child that the parent loves the most. And he sort of made me started to rethink about what Alicent actually felt about him. The other thing I loved was his actual transformation of his physical appearance. In the beginning of those scenes, he can't hardly get out of bed. He can't stand up straight or really walk. He's all in a fetal position at one point. And then when she meets the next round of contenders in the Godswood, when he comes out, he looks like Aemond. He has his eye patch back on, his hair's, in his combat mode. So I thought they did a good job of depicting his transformation over a very short period of time as well. I couldn't tell whether she knows where Vagar is or not. I would assume she does because she knows where little animals are and little people, and Vagar's pretty big, and I have to think that the energy of Vagar's got to be pretty big. When she said that Vagar was scared, that surprised me because I wouldn't think there's very much that scares Vagar, but maybe that was the projection of the bond with Aemond. So, good choice. That was on my list as a highlight as well.
Yeah, you guys have covered most of it. I thought those scenes were great. A couple other things to point out. She basically pulled a Batman, summoning the bats for that first group of invaders, disappear mysteriously, and then the bats fly in and then they all run out. The second band of brigands or intruders looking for the bounty, I think they were the Ironborn, because one of them said, "I'm going to make you my salt wife." So that's probably why they were very skilled at climbing up the rocks and everything to get there. So, and I'm digging I think it's a combination of providing whatever it is that he needs so she stays in her thrall, as you mentioned. It's kind of psychosexual and with heavy mommy overtones, but that's what Aemon needs, And he's just opening up and giving her further ammunition to help keep him in her thrall. So, yeah. And one of the House that the Dragon built are behind the scenes, they talked about how good Ewan Mitchell is with the sword play. And when he came back out to save her from the Ironborn, boy, he looks smooth and good. And I know he's supposed to be wounded why they eventually got the best of him. But he looks fantastic swinging that sword and is clearly one of the more skilled fighters they have in the cast. So, yeah, for all the creepy reasons and all the fun reasons, I dug those as well.
Don Henley said that many of us spend our adulthood trying to get past what happened to us in high school once. And in this case, Aemon is trying to get past what happened to him as a child. I remember when he got the dragon, he even bragged, I'm glad I gave up an eye because I got a dragon. But then later he's always bitter that he lost an eye, right? And wants revenge. We saw that last season when the elder madam, he was being comforted by her. But then when his brother came, he said, "Oh, one whore is good as another," and walks out very loud and proud of his nudity, right? I did notice we see a goat and then we see Alice. So once again, they are sending this message that she may be able to shapeshift or at least walk, I think is the correct term. I think she's a great, and I know I talk about this every week, but in the official Game of Thrones podcast, they interview them too. They interview Alice and they interview the actor who plays Aegon. And it was a really fun interview. They're both having really fun with this role. And I think they, one of the really great things I love when a series takes two characters that you didn't think would interact and make them interact. And so this is now that. I also love Alice has just the right amount of smartass where she's like, I'm going to call Rhaena. Like, you guys keep coming to the castle. Like, just leave me alone. So, really, really fun. And I'm glad you picked it.
I think that goats just make good guard dogs. That's why there's always a goat around before she enters and after she exits. We saw that from last week. But anyway, So other highlights that folks wanted to touch on?
Yeah, one more we haven't talked about that much yet is the Ormond and Darren playing Syvas. We talked about the game and them playing, but I thought that was a good follow-up on, speaking of control issues, to their encounters last week. There were lots of little things in that. There was they got on the subject of histories and Darren said dry, then realized that may have offended Ormond. Is like, well, not particularly dry. The textbooks may have been dry, but the history of your house is rich, and, tried to talk his way out of it as not to set off that volcanic temper. But it did give Ormond the chance to talk about Miriam Martell and that story that we talked a little bit about at the top of the show, which is a great story. James Norton delivers it really, really well. And it's interesting that Dorne was never really conquered. They became part of the Seven Kingdoms or more. Just go ask Egg, through diplomacy, and a marriage that brought them into the fold versus a bunch of dragons and armies and whatnot. So, I like that he admired, even though he's a misogynist, he certainly admired her skill there. And that's kind of what he's been doing. So I thought that was interesting. I think it was also interesting that Darren wins the game by using a dragon, which not only did Ormond get beaten, but getting beaten because he refused to play his dragon and Darren did, also says something about their relationship and about the larger picture as well. And we talked about it, that Syvas set looks great. And it was, and then he brings out the thing that we later see the results of, a coin with King Darren on it, which not only can he pay the people in King's Landing to spy for him and have his little birds, as it were, doing his dirty deeds done almost dirt cheap. But just the fact when one of those gets back to Daemon and or Rhaenyra, like it did later in the episode, that's certainly going to set them off. So I thought that was a great scene with a lot of really nice touches.
Yes, I've got my little Piff the Magic Dragon gold coin. That I love that he have it. I wonder what the going rate on a king drained coin compared to the normal coins of the realm. And I can only imagine it is exhausting trying not to piss off his, mentor, his surrogate father, because he is walking on tiptoes, right? Like just casually, oh yeah, it's pretty dry. No, not dry. And then when he realizes he wins, at first, he's really happy. He's proud. And then all of a sudden, oh crap, I just won. And then, he tries to cover up, and, then Ormond goes, never apologize for victory. But it wasn't a comforting, like, no, I'm proud you beat me. It was just kind of, this is another lesson, and don't do this too often. They are truly making this the big bad of the season, to throw a Buffy reference in there. And it is really cool to have someone to dislike who's also really good at this, right? I mean, we didn't talk about it, but the chilling mass murder of all the gold cloaks and then set it up, that is very much Da Vinci's Last Supper. I mean, that looks like that blatantly, and it even looks like it freaked Daemon out, which doesn't do that. So yeah, I think this is a great villain, and everyone needs to worry, because the slightest thing could make him, will set him off. So really good choice.
I don't know. I found the scene rather dry. Or not dry. It was, intriguing. Yes, intriguing. it put me on edge. Exactly what you were talking about, Jesse, about how much energy you have to spend to not set him off, and the dance he has to do, and it's exhausting, and I'm terrified for this kid, and like, he doesn't want to be in the position he's been put in. Suddenly Ormond has declared him king, and obviously he'd just be a puppet king because he doesn't really have any authority over Ormond. And he's even afraid to win at a board game. And so what's he going to do with real life? And here he is minting coins with his face on them. And let me just say, there are so many reasons not to put a current ruler's face on money. I'm just going to put that out there for, whoever might need to hear it. and it's not something, not something a lot of people do. I mean, they do it in England still because it's tradition at this point, but, because when there's competing rulers, you then have competing coins. And then, of course, everybody knows who you're working for because that's what's on your money. And, it's never good. And even though Daron doesn't want to be in this position, he's stuck in it now. Like, the coin has gotten out there. The enemy has seen it. And even if they understand his predicament, they can't let him live. All I can do is, this poor kid. He's such a good kid. And I feel so much for him. And, I remember my prediction for Lord Ormond for this season and my reasoning for it. I said he was going to live because he looks like a horrible person. And, yeah, I didn't realize how right I was. So, this was an interesting scene. Not at all dry.
Yeah, we talked earlier about how this whole episode ratchets up the tension, and that was definitely one of the elements of that, not just for the dynamics between Ormond and Daron, but also we're learning more about Ormond's plan, his strategic approach, right? We know what it is. It's Maria Martell. It's, ruthless opportunism. And when he's talking to Daron and he said, what did you study? Oh, I studied the dry histories. No. The details are dry, but honoring their ancestors is a worthy pastime. And then he says, well, I want to hear you recite names. And he starts calling out these houses. And then when he switches to the, Mary Martell storyline, and Daron says, well, is she a hero or a villain? And the fact that he asked that question, because she engaged in these, dirty tricks, basically. And then later when, Ormond, he wants to explode when he realizes he's lost, and he does knock over the board, and Daron's bracing for what's going to come next. And he says, never apologize for victory. That is the lesson, that he is going to put victory above all else. Even if it means he has to suppress his own anger about this little game, this minor slight, because he still has this bigger picture in mind. He's definitely Tywin level, manipulator, strategist, ruthless scale for sure. Maybe even worse, potentially worse. So yeah, this was a great scene. And as Shannon mentioned earlier, that, Savas board is just beautiful. I would imagine they're going to be, making those It's like, take my money if you want to start making
Let me just check
replicas
the
of
Noble collection.
that. Okay, so we've talked about almost everybody. I don't know if we want to also talk about our wolves and rivermen or Kristen Cole at all. I think that's the only thing we didn't talk about. So I'll leave that up to you guys.
I'm good.
Okay. Any dings we want to talk about before we go?
Kristen Cole. I mean, I just, I said that he was going to become suicidal in battle, and I didn't think it would be so depressing, and I certainly didn't think he'd drag his entire army down with him. I mean, this is getting sad and depressing. I mean, Gwaine gave up. He left. And I'm with him. I'm going with him. I mean, it might have been the leech that did it to him, but I hope the whole Kristen Cole thing comes to a head soon, because I don't know how much more I could take of it. It's so depressing.
I agree. I mentioned earlier that him talking about his sort of nightly vision, nightly vision of what it was to be a knight, and his fantasy about this life he was going to have, was more endearing to me than some of the other things he's talked about. But it's really sad, because he literally, came back to Queen Alicent. Like, in his mind, she's always the queen. And, he wants a song written about him that she'll remember and sing. And, it was just really sad. And I'm hoping Gwaine is going to do a runner in the middle of the night with a bunch of people and finally get to Tumbleton, even if it's 10 guys, because I'm not, there might be something noble, but it's so futile. And if you actually want to help the war effort, you should be going to Tumbleton, not this running around in the bog and whatever they're doing now. It's like, I think he's undermining the case for him being a great knight, by these actions as well.
I like that hope. Let's hope that Gwaine isn't just saying I'm out. Maybe he's doing the thing they should be doing, and he's going to get help. Let's hope for that. Go Gwaine.
As I said, I don't agree with him, but he is, I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. I guess Kristen Cole will do anything for love. I mean, the idea, right, when he goes through this, I'm the greatest warrior, which I thought was a little bit, maybe a little bragging on his own, but we'll let him go. And then they will sing songs, and Alicent will hear them, right? Like, and, you think back of when he asked for her favor, right? And she was like done with him. And, we remember he had a relationship with, Rhaenys, right? And then changed things around, and now he was there with Alicent, and he's the reason why she's had to do moon tea multiple times. And so, yeah, it was, I just thought it was a very sad, and I was glad to see at least some of them going like, I'm out of here. You're on this death march to Baton, Baton death march. And this is just, I'm going back, and home, and we'll worry about this later. So I thought it was a really nice, and we're curious to see where this is going to go.
Yeah. I think it's going to end in tears, though, which is too bad, because in theory, Kristen Cole should be one of their best weapons, and he's basically been taken himself off the board in a lot of ways, which he kind of did last season when he realized that this was a war about dragon power, and he can't win against that. Okay, any final thoughts before we wrap up? We're at the halfway point. Is this feeling like we're at the halfway point? To folks?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it feels like, when I talked about the episode at the beginning, it's not necessary. If you say table setting, it makes it sound boring, but we were checking in with a lot of people and getting ready for a nice ramp up to the finale. So yeah, it feels like, the story has progressed nicely. It doesn't feel like last year when we had a whole bunch of setup to get to nowhere. So yeah, I'm really pleased with, the progression of the season.
Yeah, it feels to me like we're going to have 2 waves. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff happening, and then there's going to be another round of stuff happening that is going to maybe flip things on their head a little bit, it'll be sort of the big switcheroo, like not the Red Wedding, but the impact of the Red Wedding, where it went from who seems to be winning to maybe somebody else seems to be winning.
Yeah, I think we're setting ourselves up for a lot more death. So this is kind of the quiet before the storm. So this, I think we're off to, it's moved at a good pace, and, sad that we're already halfway done.
Yeah, it came up fast. And the end of our show came up fast as well. Before we sign off, I want to thank all of our listeners. We really appreciate you. We'd love to hear from you. And I want to thank our maesters, Shannon, Jesse, and Christine. We will see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.
Make sure you feed your cats.
And spay and neuter them.
Thank you, Bob Barker.
We'd love to hear our listeners voice thoughts and send us feedback. Call us at 706-927-8478. Stop by our tuningintoscifitv.com blog to record a SpeakPipe message, or check the show notes and leave us comments. From the blog, you can also find links to forum discussions and subscribe to our RSS feed. Call into our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Skype account and leave us a message. Be social with us on our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Facebook page, or follow us at Tuning Into Sci-Fi on Twitter.
You've been listening to Small Council Matters from Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, episode 132, recorded July 20th, 2026.